Today's podcast brought to you by Brian, Carlos, Kat, Chris B, Chris M, Dan Monks, David L, David V, Donald, Eric, Jed, Joel, Kate, Lyman, Michael, Nick, Nicole, Polly, Patrick, Reese, Rick A, Rick P, Tara, Tom, and Y Yang 42. Thank you for supporting the Sunday Stoic podcast on Patreon. I salute you.
Wisdom,
Prudentia,
justice,
Justitia,
temperance,
Temperantia,
courage.
Fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic podcast. This is Steve, and the Sunday Stoic is a podcast that explores the application of ancient philosophy to living now. And I want to emphasize living now. We can only exercise virtue right now in the present. In fact, you've already missed it when I said it. That's in the past. So now, right now. So what's the goal of trying to be this virtuous person all the time? It's to reach Eudaimonia. If you haven't listened to the first episode on this, go back one episode. Eudaimonia, the flourishing life, the life that is the best good we can hope for. And according to the Stoics, unlike Aristotle would say to live the good life, you have to be a good person and have to have a couple of events occur that can only occur by chance, like being darn good to look at would be nice, having good looks, having some money, etc. These are all goods that can push you into this category of life known as eudaimonia, or this, I guess you could think of eudaimonia as a noun, maybe as a verb, I don't know, I'll just misuse it either way. But it's this good life that you achieve through virtue and through external events, according to Aristotle. But according to the Stoics, they would say, no, you achieve it only by your internal character. So your external circumstances have nothing to do with your ability to live the best life that you can. As the Stoics might say, sculpt the best statue that the material will allow. You have no control over where you were born and a number of other things, right? But you do have think of yourself as clay. You have the power to mold yourself into the best possible sculpture that the clay you've been given can make. Maybe the clay you've been given can make a perfect copy of David, right? The statue there. Maybe the clay you've been given doesn't make a very nice statue, but you make the best one you can with what you got. That's kind of how I picture eudaimonia, doing the best you can with what you got. So it'll look different in different people. But that's okay. The Stoics talk about that. We all have our own internal nature. That's what we're talking about, things that are different about us. But we have universal nature as well. We want to make sure we're doing the best to live up to that nature as well by being part of a community, being part of the globe. So last week we talked about eudaimonia, talked about some modern conceptions of it. You had a quiz you could take, a online Google form. I had a link in the last show notes you could take. You can still do that if you want. We'll talk about the results in a minute. But eudaimonia, living this flourishing life. Now, in a Pew Research poll, which I'll link to in the show notes or in the show description, they asked Americans what made life meaningful. And I'll read a few. These, of course, Americans here, U.S. adults. And in a question, what makes life meaningful, they say the number of times they mention various ideas. 69% of Americans mentioned family in their answer. So that is the biggest, by far the biggest number for what they think makes life meaningful is family. Now, according to a Stoic, you don't have to discount that. They would say that's probably okay to say that, but remember that your true good, even if you're born and you don't know your parents, and you never get married or anything, you have no family, you can still achieve eudaimonia according to the Stoics. How? By being the best person you can be every single moment. That's a big challenge, by the way, but you try like hell and see what you can do. Now, so 69% say family. Career is 34%. 34% say career, followed by finances, so money at 23%. That's kind of sad because friends are below that a little bit. But faith and spirituality, 20%. Friends and activities and hobbies both come in at 19%. Health at 16%. Education, 11%. Now, interestingly, struggles come in at 9%. Struggles, that's pretty stoic of these responders. The idea of looking back and saying, hey, the hard times taught me valuable lessons. They were meaningful. Doing good, sadly, at 7%. Community belonging, also at 7%. At the very bottom, pets at 5%. What makes life meaningful? Once again, the Stoics would say a lot of the things mentioned in this category, in fact, virtually all of them are externals and have nothing to do with your ultimate ability to achieve eudaimonia. It doesn't mean none of those have value from a external sense, but none of them are the true good, which is character. Now, I would say that struggles kind of falls into a test of your character and acknowledging that as being something that was useful, and that's good to see it on the list. We would all ultimately like to have no struggles, but how do you know how far you've come and how strong you are if you do not encounter any form of struggle? So last time we talked a bit about eudaimonia, and I sent you, I put a eudaimonia scale quiz based on a paper that I had referenced in the last episode. And we got several responses, and I thought I'd go over the current averages based on the responses. Now, this is a anonymous poll, so I don't know any names here. But there's a series of questions. I think there's 21 questions. They're just ranking on a scale. And the total number of points you could get. So if you already have taken this, note that your score is out of 105. So every one of your answers has a 0 to 5 rating, right? So you can add it up when you're done. So if you answered 3, 2, 4, 5, whatever on different questions, add those all up. And if you had a perfect score, they would add up to 105. Okay? So I don't know the national averages for the real study that first came up with these questions. I modified them slightly, but not much. But our average eudaimonic score amongst the listeners that responded was 65.5 out of 105. 65.5 out of 105. So that's think of it as your flourishing scale. Now, I'm not saying this poll was purely stoic. It probably has a bit of Aristotle built into that, right? But it's still a good modern kind of a psychological view of eudaimonia. You can see where we fall. Now, I took it as well. I fell out a little higher than your average. I didn't look at who had the highest score, if there was someone that had, a score that stood out. But I fell out at about an 80. So a little higher than the 65. So you can check out that poll in the show description from last time. And once again, it won't tally your numbers, but you can add up your answers at the end. And remember that it's a total out of 105, and the average, at least up to this point, is about a 65.5. So none of us have achieved eudaimonia. I may have been lying to myself when I answered them to achieve the 82 that I did. But I feel that in some ways I'm thriving. In many ways I'm not. I have lots of improvements to do, and I'm sure we all do. Looking back at this poll from what Americans find meaningful, I think family would fall high on my spectrum. I actually have regrets there, which probably one thing about eudaimonia is you're trying not to have contradictory values inside that fight each other, because that causes problems within and leads you away from eudaimonia. One issue I have is I love my family, but I live far away from them in order to have a career. That's a bit of a struggle for me, but I think I made the right choice ultimately. I can still talk to them. I just don't get to see them every day like my brother does, right? Career, I'm pretty happy with that. Once again, that's an external, but I did put a lot of thought into what skills I have, what I could do well. And one of the things I thought I could do well was be a teacher. And I'm not a perfect teacher, but I think I'm living up to my role as well as I can, like Epictetus would say there. Finances and money, well, my brother's a public school teacher. He already makes more money than I do teaching high school, and I could sit around and moan and become very jealous about that, but I'll choose to say that that's good for him, and I hope he does well in life, and I'm proud of him. And finances and money, it's a source of stress. And I could see why people would answer that, but I don't think it's where your ultimate good lies. I've known some wonderful people that live very simple lives and didn't have much money at all. And I know some people that have lots of money. In fact, I know more people that have lots of money and are complete useless people, for lack of a better phrase, than some of the folks I know that are poorer but would give you what they have if you needed it. One thing that I disagree with on this poll, I think, I'm not saying I disagree with the results of the poll, but from the average American, is I really want more community belonging. They put it way down there as like 7% of Americans mentioned it, like it's not that important. I think we severely underrate that. I'd like to see what other cultures and other nations rank community belonging at. Instead of 7% of Americans saying it's important, I have to think that should be higher if you want to have a good, flourishing life, at least from a Aristotle type perspective. Once again, the Stoics would say you don't have to have it, but that doesn't mean they don't value it. So that's kind of the hard part to think about all this, is there's different concepts of what eudaimonia means. The Stoics having that whole preferred indifference thing included in there. So you could say, well, you don't have to have community engagement to be happy, but it would be nice, right? That's what preferred indifference are. It would be nice. But how do we live moment to moment in pursuit of this excellence? So, I think of eudaimonia as this sort of end game. You don't know if you've really made it until you're dead or you're approaching death. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But day to day, we're far from eudaimonia. Like I said, 65. We had a score of 65 out of 105 from our listeners so far on a eudaimonia scale. We're far from it, but what can we do day by day to inch towards it? We're never going to be sages, but we can get closer. And that's where arete comes in. One of my favorite words, arete, which I first remember hearing in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Or is it motorcycle maintenance? I don't know. But motorbike maintenance. And it's translated a lot as virtue, but excellence is another good way to translate it. So horses have arete. So think of a horse. What makes a horse great? It can run fast, at least from our human perspective. It can run fast. That makes a horse a great horse. What makes, I don't know, what makes an actor have arete? Well, maybe they have the ability to take on any persona and make it believable. But what makes a whole human life have arete, which is sort of tied into this idea of eudaimonia, the good life? Well, let's back off that noble goal, which we kind of talked about last time. What does each moment mean to have arete? And I think that's where mindfulness comes in. Maybe not Buddhist mindfulness, but more of a Stoic here and now, hic et nunc mindfulness, doing the best you can with the project you're currently engaged in. That could be driving home. So what does it take to be a good driver on the drive home? Being vigilant, checking your mirrors, not losing your calm, using your turn signal. Using your turn signal! I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lose my temper there. Please use your turn signals when turning or changing lanes. Turning your lights on when it's getting dark or raining so other people can see you. Different things like that. Now, a lot of that is you interacting with externals, right? But it's you being mindful about it, thinking about it, keeping your cool, and doing the best thing, the just thing. Using your turn signals is a form of justice. Let the person behind you know what you're doing. And so all of that comes together in the moment. That is arete. And you can see this explained elsewhere online where you can say, okay, down here, you can't see my hands, but down here is your performance. And up here is the best version of you that there could possibly be. You as a sage. And this is what you would do in this moment if you were a sage. This is what you're doing right now down here. Now, if you can improve what you're doing now and get it closer to the version of what you would be doing if you were a sage, you're improving in the moment. You're increasing your excellence, your arete. And the summation of arete over years and years, let's say, you can think of that as the good life or eudaimonia. If you're a statistician, you want the error bars around what you're currently doing to overlap with the error bars of what the sage version of you would be doing. And if you can get those error bars to overlap for almost everything you do, perhaps that is eudaimonia. I don't know. I'm not a real philosopher. So moment by moment, doing the best we can. And part of that is knowing yourself, like we talked about last time. I put up several links last time. One of them was a personality quiz to kind of get to know yourself. I'll go over my results for patrons after this show. I'll patrons look for that episode soon. But you get to know yourself so you can understand. For example, maybe you are not a social person. That doesn't mean you have to be to exemplify excellence. Maybe it means, okay, I'm not a social person, so maybe me, I don't know, working in a soup kitchen or giving speeches is not the way I'm going to engage with the world or exhibit justice. Maybe I will do it through writing blogs and doing fundraising through a website or whatever, some way that doesn't involve me directly giving speeches in front of people or whatever. That's fine. You acknowledge that. That's part of being mindful, is knowing yourself and then taking that and using it to then mindfully engage with the world. That is arete, living up to your potential. And when I say potential, I don't know. I've read Ryan Holiday and others, and I feel like I am in a different world from these people. I'm not a jock. I hear the same phraseologies used, like, live up to your potential. Yeah, I'm going to be so strong and buff and I'm going to be rich. I don't mean that. I don't mean that so much. I mean, you could take it that way, I guess, but living up moment to moment, as well as doing everything like Marcus Aurelius might say, as if it was the last thing you're going to do before you die. That's difficult, and that's why we don't achieve it typically. But that paperwork you don't want to do, well, do the best you can on it. Do it. Try to do it like you were a sage. Make it a game. I don't know, but put the effort in and see if you feel better about yourself at the end of the day. Moment by moment. If you're always your best self, you don't lose your temper, right? My kid wouldn't drive me nuts by singing in the same 3 words to a song over and over again. I could be the best dad I could be. I could learn to teach him better without losing my cool. All of our lives could be improved by the application of excellence in the moment. So in the words of Bill and Ted, be excellent to each other. Be excellent in the moment. Support the show by going to patreon.com/SundayStoic or writing a review on iTunes or whatever platform you use. Share it with a friend. And I appreciate all my listeners. Thank you for being there and for listening. And thank you for growing with me as I explore the ancient philosophy of Stoicism. Carpe diem. The College of Stoic Philosophers is pleased to announce its very first public webinar on September 21st at 12:30 p.m. U.S. Central Time. The topic is Discovering the Stoic God in Environmental Stewardship and Social Responsibility. Please visit www.collegeofstoicphilosophers.org/tuition to subscribe. Moderated by Professor Dirk E. Mailing, University of Pittsburgh. The panel, made up of Kai Whiting, University of Lisbon, Leonidas Konstantakos, Florida International University, and Chris Fisher, a member of our very own faculty, all come together to discuss the role the Stoic version of a sentient cosmos plays in addressing some of the 21st century's most pressing issues. We will be answering your questions live, so bring plenty. For those looking for a more structured way of learning, the College of Stoic Philosophers has 17 faculty members who provide mentoring and tutoring in introductory and advanced topics of Stoicism through our 4 separate schools of distance education. Enrollment is open to the public, and we will be happy to help you find the right course to suit your interests and knowledge level. Please visit us at www.collegeofstoicphilosophers.org and sign up for our newsletter for updates and more. That's www.collegeofstoicphilosophers.org. Before we go, Kai sent me a new web address with a link, and it's in the show description, so you can sign up for that class. And also, don't forget to go to my Etsy store. I'll put a link in the show notes, and you can get your Sunday Stoic Challenge coin. Hey, Charlie, say Carpe Diem.
Carpe Diem.
All right.
Thank you for listening to The Sunday Stoic. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review The Sunday Stoic on iTunes. Become a member of the Sunday Stoic team, earn rewards, and be an integral part of the show by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/SundayStoic. Contact the show by emailing sundaystoic@gmail.com or by leaving a voicemail at 501-503-3132. To find out more, visit www.sundaystoicpodcast.com.